I say to my honourable friend that if we follow that logic, then literally every single weapon should be banned. Because having served in Northern Ireland myself, you know, there is no end to the point where you say that everything should be banned. My point is, if we accept that these are not likely to be used, and if properly secured and controlled are not, therefore we should carefully think that if we go on just banning things like this, we don't achieve what we're after. I am from Waltham Forest right now, and we have handguns available to any criminal that wants to use them, and yet we ban those as well. So the right people can't use things, but the wrong people certainly carry on.
You know, I wasn't sure if I was going to do a video on this. Dave Ewing at Firearms UK contacted me recently and said, you know, you should really do a video about this impending weapons ban for what, lever release, Mars rifles, and 50 BMG, essentially. But then I saw the video, the clip from the Commons, posted by Dave Ewing, Mike Lindsay today, and it seems that the letter writing and all of the attention that you guys are giving to this problem is actually creating some level of debate. I mean, to see Ian Duncan Smith saying essentially, well, what are you going to do? Just take guns away from lawful gun owners? He said himself, as you saw, that in his constituency, obviously handguns are banned, but you can just easily go out and buy a handgun if you really want one. And you do really have to ask yourself, well, where does this actually end? I mean, we saw the massacre in Nice in France with a lorry, and it's like, well, there's no question that a lorry can be used as a deadly weapon. Well, you know, I don't mean to be facetious saying, oh, you know, they're going to ban lorries, you know, are you going to ban lorries then? I mean, obviously they're not going to do that. But it just proved the point that this is not addressing the problem. You know, if something like this happens, you really have to see and look at the root causes of the issue. And our government seem to be doing this constantly. They seem to like to deal with the symptoms of an issue, but without ever considering the cause of the issue. Like, you know, case in point, they will constantly go on about the problem of the rise of the far right, or, you know, people saying things that they don't like on Facebook about certain groups that remain unnamed. And it's just like, well, don't you think it's because you're not actually dealing with the problem they're complaining about that they're reacting in this way? You know, the solution isn't just to tell them to shut up, it's to actually fix the problem. And yeah, we've got, what, a problem with knife crime in London. The way you solve that isn't by taking away the knives to do it. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, what are you going to do? Well, you know, sort of take everything away. What, are you going to go to building merchants and take away pieces of metal that could be rubbed against a stone and fashioned to some rudimentary edge that people could hack themselves with? Are you going to ban hammers? And, you know, where would it end? That isn't addressing a problem at all. And frankly, it's an attempt to just gloss over the issue, to make a meaningless gesture to the people, to sort of look like you actually care about the problem. But anyway, as I said, you need to write to your MP. I'll put a link in the comments to show you how to find your local MP, and just write to them. And, you know, they are going to say to you in return, they're going to say about 50 BMG ban, for instance. They're going to say, well, you know, we're terrified of what would happen if these got into the hands of terrorists. So before you allow them to just have that as a stock response, because they will have a stock response, as you write it, you can say, look, I know you're concerned about 50 BMG rifles getting into the hands of the wrong people, but have you ever considered why that's a problem? Because the thing is, right, the military do not use 50 BMG rifles for shooting at people with. They use them for shooting at vehicles. And the only reason they use them for shooting at vehicles is because the cartridge, well, sorry, the bullet in the cartridge is so big, it can be hollowed out, and they can put stuff in them. They can put incendiary rounds and armour-piercing rounds and explosive rounds, so it can go through the door of a car and blow up. What they don't use them for is for their ballistics, because they're not very good. The military uses either a 308 or they use a 338 Lampour. Because if you fire a 50 BMG, I mean, even at like 500 yards, you're looking at like a group like this. It isn't accurate. I mean, sure, in Afghanistan and places, people have used them to shoot against personnel, but they're not by any means that effective. And when you look at it in conjunction with their attempt to ban Mars rifles and lever release rifles, which we'll get onto in a moment, and they say that they want to ban those because of the rate of fire, well, the rate of fire from a 50 BMG is very, very, very low indeed. And it's just like, well, okay, yeah, you could shoot someone and it's very powerful, but it's, you know, if you're dead, you're dead. So if you get shot with a 30 cal, you know, like a Lee Enfield cartridge, you're still dead. If something makes a bigger hole through you, it doesn't make any difference. You're still dead, aren't you? And so a 50 BMG fires a monstrously powerful cartridge. I mean, if you take the type of rifle the American military use, that's a semi-automatic. We can't have that, so the sort of Barrett, whatever it is they have. But you could shoot a regular deer rifle at a higher rate of fire than that, even in semi-automatic. I mean, okay, you could pull the trigger quickly, but if you did, they wouldn't be aim shots. So that doesn't make any sense. But here, we only have them in bolt action, and they're going to hold, like, what, 5 shots? So they're going to go, boom, and then go, oh my god, rack it, and then go, boom, and they're going to be there, taking a very long time to fire a very small number of shots. And as I said, the targets are going to be dead anyway. So how is this more dangerous? Unless, of course, they did actually have incendiary rounds, armour-piercing rounds, explosive rounds, which are all already illegal. So, as you're writing your letter, perhaps mention that doesn't make any sense at all. It really doesn't. And the old adage, as Ian Duncan Smith pointed out, is that people can get hold of whatever they want anyway if they're determined enough in this country. We banned handguns in 1997, and handguns there are more handguns in the hands of criminals today than there have ever been. So all you're doing at this point is taking firearms away from law-abiding gun owners. It doesn't make any sense. They have the security measure in place. We all know what you go through. So that doesn't make any sense. But then the next issue is the Mars and the lever-release rifles. And as you all know, Mars rifles based upon the VZ58, which looks like an AK, but it's not really. You put a mag in, you rack it, the bolt holds back, you pull the trigger, the bolt goes forward, you pull the trigger again, goes off, gases push the piston hits the bolt goes back, holds back again, you have to pull the trigger another time after you've reset it to make the bolt go forward and fire, and so on and so forth. Now, I've seen these guns being used at my club, and the rate of fire isn't actually any greater than you could shoot with a bolt action. In fact, it's slower, I believe, than something like a Lee Enfield 303. And in fact, there was a letter from CZ who was sent one of these rifles for testing, because they obviously manufacture this rifle. Oh, well, not the Mars, but the original rifle. And they said themselves, the rate of fire is no faster than something like a Lee Enfield rifle. But of course, a Lee Enfield rifle fires a 30 caliber bullet, so it's a much more powerful rifle, and it can fire at the same, or if possibly a faster rate. And the same can be said for the lever-release rifles. And they're extremely expensive and very rare. Very few people even own them. And the 50 BMGs, as I said before, I mean, they're even rarer. So this has no rationale in terms of harm reduction. But then also, it wouldn't be so bad if this was at least a gesture hand in hand with the real cause of the problem. Because what we're talking about here is, let's be honest, we're talking about Islamic extremism. And you're not going to fix Islamic extremism by trying to ban the means at which they're going to murder us all, are you? I mean, that just makes no sense at all. Why are there no measures being put in place to try and, you know, find out who these people are? Because at the end of the day, this community, the Islamic community, are, you know, yeah, sure, most of them are fine, you know, they're not going to cause any harms to anyone. But disproportionately, percentage of their population, there is a disproportionate number of people committing these acts. That's why this ban's coming in. So you need to look at why is that happening. The fact that we're leaving the EU is a good start, because obviously now Angela Merkel has let in so many people from like North Africa and Syria into her country. They could be on their way here. So that's a start. But you need to look at that sort of harm reduction. I mean, the same thing goes for the whole knife thing. That, you know, the banning of online knife sales and stuff. It's the same problem. It's just like, look, stop dealing with the symptoms of the problem and start actually trying to solve the problem. At least talk about it. It's just bizarre. They're not even talking about it. They're not talking about why young men in gangs in London are stabbing each other. Why are they riding around on motorbikes and stealing stuff off people? Why are they throwing acid in people's faces? Why are they doing that? What can we do to stop them wanting to do that? trying to take the means that they do that isn't going to make any difference. They'll find a way. And terrorists will find a way too. You know, you can buy off-the-shelf fertilizer and make a bomb. And we saw with the Boston bomber in the United States. He could have got guns way more easily than you could even hear. And he still chose a bomb because that was more effective. So that's the problem, isn't it? Deal with the cause of the problem. But as I said, I thought this was a pointless video to make. I really did. I didn't think that there was any sense, because they don't have any logical sense, seemingly, in government. But this was the brainchild of Amber Rudd, and obviously not having a particularly big brain, she didn't think it through. And now we have the new Home Secretary, and maybe he's a bit more open-minded. And we are seeing different ministers coming up and talking about it. So it really does seem to be making a difference. So you know, don't be apprehensive about it. Put pen to paper and let them know your views. Mention the things that I've gone through here about the fact that a 50 BMG is not a sniper rifle. It's not very accurate. It doesn't have a very high rate of fire, and you can't buy explosive rounds for it. It is not a particular threat any more than any other firearm. Mars rifles and lever-release rifles do not have a higher rate of fire than most bolt-action rifles, and in fact fire quite a weak cartridge. That's an important point to make. But anyway, by all means, you know, you can go onto my Facebook group and you can, you know, PM me or whatever about letters you've written, and I'll post them up. But it does seem there is some momentum here. It does seem to be making a difference. So it's time to make your voice heard.